Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome to another film theory reaction. And today's reaction is, what did FNAF 2 even tell us about the lore? So yeah, given that this is on the Film Theory channel, I'm going to suspect that this is the long-awaited, video about the FNAF 2 movie. Which, honestly, I am, kind of excited to watch. I mean, as I said in my own review, I liked the FNAF 2 movie, and, if you liked the first one, you'll like the second one. But, but thinking about it, what did it tell us? So, it tells us the FNAF, well, I mean, at least in the movie itself, that the FNAF 2 location was the first, and then the FNAF 1 was, a franchise location. There was only one ghost in the FNAF 2 location, that was Charlie and the puppet, controlling all the other animatronics. The Wizards were prototypes of the, toys or whatever. Yeah. And apparently the puppet can possess people, which, again, isn't freaky at all. So yeah, I'm going to guess that the writers of Film Theory have put a lot more time and effort into this than I have. So I very much want to see what they have to say on the topic. So, I really don't have anything else to say on this, so let's actually get this thing started. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video linked to my game theory reaction. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because almost 3/4 of the people that watch my channel aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because I'm trying to see how close to 7,000 subscribers I can get before the end of the year. Yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Five Nights at Freddy's 2 changed the lore. Yeah, this movie straight up took one look at the games and said, I can do that better, and it might be fixing all of the problems we've had with the timeline because of it.
Okay, here we go.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's possessing your YouTube homepage. The only way to make sure it doesn't destroy the whole website? Open the subscribe button shaped music box and let her rip. So after years of waiting and more theories than you can count on one hand, the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie has finally hit theaters. I have to say, the culture around this movie really surprised me. People I followed for years for other things came out of the woodwork to express their love for this series with this movie's release, and that's just so much fun. And it just really created an environment in the theater that felt like peak 2010s midnight cinema releases. Team Theorist actually did a group outing watching the whole movie together, and we really appreciated the energy of our audience. Also, shoutouts to the rad employee at the Cinemark Bistro here in Raleigh who talked to me on the way out of the theater. Yeah, here's the theory that I promised we'd make, and sorry I didn't catch your name, my brain was in full theory crafting mode, but
God, that's one of those things, I saw it, literally, not even on the official opening day, we got it on, the day before, because, they were offering it on there, but, that was one of those things, I wanted to go and actually see the movie in, on the opening day with, a full theater, which I did, to get, the experience of watching with, other people, presumably FNAF fans. I mean, I'm a bit sad to say that my theater wasn't that energetic, unfortunately. Maybe if I had gone on actual opening day, quote unquote, it might have been different, but I mean, you never know. I wouldn't have had the car on, on the Friday, so I mean, you make do with what you got.
Thanks for saying hi. But speaking of theory crafting, dude, there is just so much to talk about here. First off, the fact that my friend, former film theorist, and official movie star voice actor Matthew Patrick completely disappeared into his role for this movie. Not gonna lie, if I didn't know that Matt were Toy Bonnie in this, I wouldn't have been able to clock it, in a positive way.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, me personally, I could still tell it was Matt Pat. Though, actually, wait, actually, wait, but would I have been able to figure that out if I didn't know ahead of time? Huh. I don't actually know, now that I think about it. Huh.
But other than that, oh boy, does this movie do a lot for FNAF lore. So much so that when Tom and I had our little huddle talk after the movie came out, we both came away with so many questions and ideas left to explore. Like, what was up with that dream sequence Vanessa had? The puppet seems to have new powers here? What does that mean for the future of the series? And oh god, a second mic has appeared in the movie theater.
A second mic has hit the movie.
There is surprisingly huge. We have a lot to talk about, loyal theorists, so today I want to go through this movie and its plot to hit the biggest points of discussion and theorize about them. And by the end of our theory today, we're going to have a clear picture of what the future of the FNAF movies is going to look like. Because we're definitely getting like a dozen of these things. But here's the TLDW. The FNAF movies are Scott going back to tell the real story he always wanted to tell and putting the pieces of his mistakes back together again. Get your Freddy masks ready and hug an animatronic chicken, loyal theorists. We will always belong to the theorizing. So the film opens in 1982, where we're introduced to a new character named Charlotte Emily attending a birthday party in the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. This one is different than the location we've seen in the first movie, like we talked about in previous theories. Now, before, we've called this character Charlie because that was her nickname in other franchise material, but for simplicity's sake, and also because this version of the character ends up being way different than any other version of Charlie we see, we're just going to be calling the movie version of this character Charlotte to line up with everything we see in the movie. Overall, she's a bit of a strange kid, has an obsession with the puppet animatronic in this location, and is friends with a young Vanessa Afton. Off in the corner, she sees Afton dressed up as Golden Bonnie lure a kid into the back of the pizzeria, and when she tries to warn the parents at the party, they're honestly pretty huge jerks and ignore her, like comically so. The adults in this movie are just terrible people looking at you, Wayne Knight, the teacher, though the lawyer from the previous movie is back, and you know, at least he was cool. Anyway, because of this, Charlotte goes back on her own to try to rescue the kid, and successfully gets him away from Afton, only for her to run back onto the pizzeria's stage, scream, and then die. Afton stabbed her off camera, and her body falls into the arms of the marionette puppet in a genuinely awesome, if depressing, shot. It's also funny because I straight up said in our last theory that it would be cool if like the camera panned up to reveal that Charlotte had been stabbed, and that's exactly what happens, but that wouldn't really make sense with what was being sold as an accident. And yet somehow, in a little bit of a baffling move, it still is sold as an accident. Like, I went to the movie.
Okay, actually, so the way I could see it being is, like, obviously, again, like, the parents here are not the best parents. They're not the most observant. So what I could see happening is that, you know, she dies, maybe not that many, she dies from, you know, blood loss or whatever. And, like, people don't quite see, you know, the stab wounds on her back before the trapdoor for the puppet opens and she falls in. And then, like, maybe Afton or whoever he has working for him for, like, the legal department is able to, like, twist it in, like, court or whatever into saying, oh, those wounds aren't like stab wounds, they're actually from her falling in and, like, getting trapped in the puppet's mechanism or, you know, something like that.
A couple of times, and I tried to read through all of the newspapers about the accident that flash up during the opening credits, and at least the parts that were visible didn't really have an explanation for how Afton convinced people that Charlotte somehow, like, fell onto a knife in her back multiple times. It's a little bit strange. Only one of the articles really said that foul play was suspected, and, like, yeah, obviously. But hey, you know, maybe I'm just not super creative. We then flash forward 20 years, confirming our previous theory that these movies take place in the early 2000s. So this one is in 2002. Somehow, Mike and Abby's aunt survived the previous movie despite it being heavily implied that she died. I guess Golden Freddy wasn't lying when he said,
"Silly Aunt Jane, she fell asleep."
Anyway, the aunt has been using the story of the animatronics to try to make money.
Well, I mean, wasn't she in, like, a mental asylum or something like that? I think I remember that. I remember that being said.
And all of the murders and ghosts and all that jazz have become popular folklore because of that. And I mean, like, really popular. Like, almost as if there were a whole series of hugely popular video games made about the subject, given how enthusiastic all of the middle and high school aged kids in this film seem to be about Freddy's. But hey, you know, we wouldn't really know anything about that in the real world, huh? Real talk, I do love the acknowledgement of the fan base here. It's very cute. Anyway,
I mean, you say that, and like, you say it's been, you know, a year or something since the first movie. So I'm wondering here, like, can you imagine if somebody like actually made games based off them and basically recreated the first game? Well, actually, yeah, maybe you could do the first 3 games. I don't know. like actually in the movie's universe. Because remember, like, Scott put out the first 3 games of the series within a year, so I mean, it could be possible.
Things seem to be looking up for Mike and Abby. They're in a new house, Abby's in a new school, and the money troubles they had in the last movie are basically not mentioned here at all. It's also very clear that Mike and Abby are doing a bit better for themselves, though they don't really talk about it. He seems to have started a new job that's let him invest in a new house, so it is a bit of a fixer-upper. The animatronics, however, seem to be either broken, or the spirits are gone, or dormant, or something like that. They just aren't really active anymore at all.
Well, it's not that the animatronics weren't active, the animatronics just weren't there.
Much to Abby's sadness. Also, Vanessa isn't really doing too well either. She keeps having traumatic flashbacks about her father, which, you know, is understandable given the decades of abuse and literally being stabbed by him. With Mike's encouragement, Vanessa goes home and tries to confront her memories of her father inside of her head using her dreams, similar to what Mike did with Garrett from the first movie. More or less, this looks like she's using something called lucid dreams to confront her nightmares. If you don't know, a lucid dream is one where you realize that you are asleep and dreaming, and because of that, you can kind of do whatever you want. Want to fly? You can. Want to shoot fireballs out of your hands? You can. I've only ever had like 2 in my life, and they were super fun. Though, that being said,
No, yeah, I mean, like, I've never had a lucid dream. Most of the time, it's like, by the time, like, I'll dream that I'm doing something, and then I won't, and then I'll, like, wake up, and then I'll realize I was dreaming, and then, you know, within like 10 minutes forget what the dream was even about.
I hadn't ever really heard of them being used in a therapeutic way like this. I did look into this a little bit, and there was a study from 2023 that examined this idea, and though it acknowledged that it needed to do further research with a larger study and sample size, the initial results were encouraging. So hey, that's neat. We got some scientifically accurate therapy here in FNAF. Anyway, we see Vanessa confront Afton in her dream, but he seems a bit too strong for her as she reverts to her child self. She runs and hides in his workshop in their home, finding the circus baby animatronic hidden here as well. It then lights up and looks down at her. It's a genuinely creepy moment, and obviously this is significant for a few reasons.
Why? Because, you know, circus baby is, you know, here and built and exists. And, like, from what I saw of the from, like, behind-the-scenes videos from, like, Dawko and 8-Bit Ryan, you know, on Razbowski and stuff like that, Circus Baby's eyes were green already. So, yeah, I have no idea what's that. So does that imply that, you know, she's already possessed? Did Vanessa have a little sister? Don't know.
So this is the film's version of the Circus Baby from the Sister Location video game, an animatronic that was haunted by the soul of Elizabeth Afton, daughter of the game's William Afton. So basically, the game version of the Vanessa character we have here in the movies. Elizabeth was also the age Vanessa is here in this dream sequence when she got put into the baby animatronic, so this was absolutely intentional on Scott's part. Oh, and additionally, in the books, Baby sort of was like Afton's helper, right? So this makes me wonder if he was planning on doing something similar here in the movies. And, you know, the very fact that Vanessa is still alive makes me wonder if Afton gave up on that particular idea, or if something happened that changed his plans. Or maybe someone else got stuffed into Baby. At this point, who knows? Oh, this does also add one small complication to something we saw in the FNAF 1 movie. If you don't remember, we also saw a somewhat similar Springlock animatronic in that first FNAF movie. This was the one that all of the ghost kids wanted to shove Abby into so that she would join them. However, looking back at this thing, it doesn't look a ton like the traditional baby animatronic, and it borrows some ideas from the Ella animatronic from the Silver Eyes novel.
Right, yeah, I remember people theorizing that that was like the movie's version of Baby, because, like, again, cheeks, hair, humanoid, but yeah, the fact that they made, like, an actual, like, accurate, you know, model of Baby that's apparently, you know, accurately sized and weighted. Just
to be clear, I would guess that this was intended to be Baby originally, but after the success of that first movie, plans changed and they have introduced a more game-accurate version of Baby in the film series now. So genuinely, no idea if we're ever even going to touch that Ella baby animatronic from the first movie again.
Who knows?
It might just be lost to history. Oh, and something else worth pointing out in this scene. After encountering Baby, Afton finds Vanessa and says that she will always be his. She then runs away from Afton and manages to push his dream self over over the edge of their stairway in an act of defiance. He falls to the floor, injured, but looks back up at her and says again that she will always be his. This line is later repeated by another character towards the end of the movie, saying that all of Afton's children will always be his, that they can't escape that fate. And what I find interesting here is what isn't said, right? I think that there was a way to incorporate Afton's iconic line about wanting to put things back together right here in this spot. Like, hey, I wanted to put our family back together, even from beyond the grave. So I wonder if this film is going to be tweaking Afton's obsession slightly. Like, instead of wanting to put the broken pieces of his life into animatronics and family back together, Afton is obsessed with controlling his family and animatronics and victims. That would even fit with a lot of what we saw in FNAF 1, where he wanted to control the ghosts of the children in those animatronics, right? Anyway, just a random thought I had. Let's move on.
I mean, I guess that could work, because again, from everything from everything we've seen, you know, it hasn't seemed like, you know, there were any more kids. Like, again, we saw in the games, there was the crying child, Michael, and then Elizabeth. But at the same time, Vanessa is called out multiple times for not telling the entire truth on things. So who's to say she's not withholding more family secrets and stuff like that?
Elsewhere, the plot must continue as a group of paranormal investigators led by a woman named Lisa are invited to come take a look at the original Freddy's location. Let's move on. Elsewhere, the plot must continue as a group of paranormal investigators led by a woman named Lisa are invited to come take a look at the original Freddy's location, the one where Charlotte was killed. And who invited him here? Well, a security guard named Mike. But shock, it's not our Mike, but instead a new character named Michael with probably the creepiest face I've ever seen. They really nailed the casting on this one. My guy looks like a Skarsgård. Anyway, as they explore the building, Lisa finds a music box next to the machinery with the puppet inside and turns it off, causing the marionette to come to life. Yeah, it's been possessed by Charlotte, and the puppet has
shock! Who could have guessed?
Wireless control over all of the rest of the animatronics in the building, and because of that, you can guess what comes next. All of the paranormal investigators are killed off in fun, awesome ways, while the puppet possesses Lisa's body with special effects that are genuinely creative and creepy. Though interestingly, Michael, who recognizes Charlotte, is spared. Wonder if that'll be significant later. So another thing I wanted to mention here is the fact that the puppet has a brand new power, taking control of human bodies. That was never really something we saw from the puppet in the games, and I'm not gonna lie, it really caught me off guard in the theaters, and not just because the special effects were creepy or whatever. To me, this seems like a strange choice that Scott is making now to help make other things make sense later, especially with stories like Help Wanted down the road. Those games dealt with weird AI possession, and going out of his way to introduce that sort of idea now, all of a sudden, that's a lot of work down the road that the FNAF series doesn't need to do.
Okay, well, I mean, thinking about it, could that be retroactively trying to, I mean, if the lore here can be applied to the games, could that be, you know, trying to retroactively kind of, like, actually say that, oh, Glitch Trap actually is, you know, Afton, or at least the digital ghost of Afton possessing people or something like that?
Now awake, the puppet lures Abby to the original location by pretending to be the spirits of the FNAF 1 animatronics, befriending her and helping her with some school projects.
Pretending to be the spirits of the FNAF 1 animatronics in the toy animatronics. And when Abby rightly points out, hey, you look different, how did you get here? They just kind of brush it aside and don't really explain it.
Realizing what's going on and recognizing the work of Charlotte, Vanessa also returns to the original location. It's here where she reveals that the puppet uses that wireless technology I was just talking about that is way ahead of its time to control all of the animatronics in the building. And I mean, it is just super crazy advanced. Y'all, I can't connect to my Wi-Fi if there are like 2 walls between my phone and the router. This is wild stuff. I know that technology in FNAF has always been ridiculously advanced, but when you see it in live action and something specifically confirmed to be set in 2002 when cell phones looked like this, man, it's just a bit of a gobsmack. But Vanessa also...
I mean, granted, you know, there is the newspaper that says, you know, like, William Afton was very ahead of its time, so I mean, who knows?
Locked down the animatronics using a special firewall so they can't leave the location, something the puppet wants to do to get revenge on all of the parents who didn't listen to her and caused her death. Why she doesn't blame Afton, or at the very least like the Golden Bunny for her death instead of the parents, who knows? It's actually something I legitimately left the theater trying to wrap my head around, so if you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments. Anyway,
I mean, okay, so my whole thought process on that is, you know, obviously when it's with Charlie, or Charlotte, I should say specifically, like, she was in pain. She'd been stabbed several times in the back. So obviously, you know, not thinking clearly, but also all the stuff that led to her death happened because the adults that she tried to warn and get help from did literally nothing. So I could see it being, you know, in her last moments before she possesses the puppet, because it specifically said she's trapped in, like, the last moments of, like, not agony, of, like, anger and despair or whatever. I'm forgetting the exact words now. Like, maybe, like, if that mind was, those thoughts were just going over and over and over in her head, going, it's like, oh, they could have helped. They could have helped. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. You know, something like that. And in that moment, because she was, you know, in pain, she wasn't even really thinking of the rabbit at all.
Anyway, the puppet threatens Abby and forces Vanessa to give her the code to set them free so they can go attack the parents. Fun fact, but this was actually the scene from the script pages Scott released last year for the 10th anniversary of FNAF.
Yes, and when that scene happened, I specifically remembered, oh god, wait, this is the teaser! And I specifically remember, that was the one scene I remember really liking, and I'm happy that that's the one that actually was real.
I originally didn't think that this was the correct page and wrote it off because, according to the script, it was only going to be happening on page 25, which was way too early for this to happen in the movie. Like, seriously, even in the final product, page 25 is ridiculously early and does not line up with the time at all. I really have to wonder if Scott changed the page numbers to hide this, or if this was, like, something from a different draft of the script, or, man, who knows at this point. Anyway, around this same time, Mike meets Charlotte's dad, Henry, and gets a bit of an exposition dump, and then heads to the original pizzeria where he frees Vanessa. She heads out to stop the animatronics as Mike basically plays the actual FNAF 2 video game IRL, and also somehow gets snuck up on by all of the animatronics like multiple times. They make such a big deal about how loud the footsteps of these things are, but they jump scare Mike right next to his face. It's classic horror movie logic at its finest.
Well, of course. I mean, that was one of the things, like, talking about, you know, people, like, the reviews for this movie. And, like, this is not a serious horror movie. It honestly is not. It is based on a mascot horror game. It is campy. It is for the fans. It is silly and kind of nonsensical in some moments, but it is fun. It is just fun.
Anyway, after several scary scenes, the animatronics are all eventually shut down, but the puppet possesses Abby's body. But thankfully, Mike is able to free her with another music box he conveniently got from Henry. But then Michael shows up with the reactivated animatronics and reveals that he is, dun dun dun,
Michael Afton,
Vanessa's brother. So this right here is actually a pretty big deal because for the longest time, we thought that Mike Schmidt and Michael Afton were the same character in the games. If this is Scott officially separating those characters, at least in this canon, that makes a lot of things make way more sense. But that is a discussion for another channel. I'm pretty sure Tom is going to be talking about that in a video over at our sister location Game Theory pretty soon. So.
Oh god, that's gonna be fun to watch. Just the complete rewrite of the FNAF timeline because of new information from the movies. I'm gonna enjoy seeing him go absolutely insane from it.
So go check that out. Either way, Michael wants to continue his father's work here, both in murder and in animatronics, which I suppose explains his plan here? It's a bit unclear, but it seems like Michael wanted to wake up Charlotte, or has been trying to, or something. Like, he says, "Welcome back, Charlotte," when she wakes up, but hasn't been successful in bringing her back himself. Like, he seems shocked when Lisa actually manages to wake Charlotte up. But again, that's strange since it was pretty obvious that the music box was keeping her asleep. Whatever he was doing here, it was very unclear. And it seems like it was setting up something down the road rather than making total sense in the here and now. Anyway, Michael wants Vanessa to join him and Charlotte in their rampage since they will, quote, always belong to Afton. But Vanessa refuses. And just before our main characters bite the dust, the FNAF 1 animatronics show up with their hopping out of portals at the end of Avengers Endgame, defeating the toy animatronics, and saving the day, but sacrificing themselves to do so. Michael runs away as Golden Freddy explains that they won't be able to hold Afton's spirit in stasis anymore before disappearing into the afterlife. Gonna be real, that kinda took me aback. I'm surprised that they'd let the original animatronic spirit kids go this early in the series. Like, I guess maybe they were just afraid that the actors would be growing up and it wouldn't be consistent, maybe?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the things I went into the movie thinking about. Because, like, I had no idea how the kids were going to, work, given that, they were, actual kids. I'm forgetting her name, but you look at the actress that plays Abby, and she's had a major growth spurt between the first and second movie. So, I can definitely see that being an issue with, kids who are supposed to be dead and unchanging.
I wonder what big plans they have coming as a consequence of this. Mike then turns around and basically dumps Vanessa, telling her that he can't trust her and that she should stay away from him and his family. This was absolutely ridiculous, to be honest, and my whole theater was like, dude, what? This understandably devastates Vanessa, who basically just chose Mike and Abby over her own family, and allows for the puppet to come in and possess her body, which is fascinating. It almost feels like they're moving the storyline with Vanny and Vanessa from Security Breach up to these new movies. Either way, cue the end credits and post-credit scene showing a bunch of random guys finding Springtrap and picking him up for a new FNAF-themed horror animatronic that they're building. And then a voicemail from Henry revealing his origins as Afton's business partner and then his death at the hands of something? Probably the puppet. It was a little unclear, but it was probably the puppet. Man, so this movie was a lot, and a lot happens in it. But my biggest takeaway? They are taking these movies in a direction I just did not see coming. See, if you've been watching the theories here on the channel for a while, you'll know that both me and Matt thought that they were going to be combining and simplifying a lot of ideas and even whole storylines and games. That's why Mike wasn't related to Afton, or why Security Breach era ideas and characters showed up in FNAF 1. That would then lead to the FNAF 3 movie being more of a Security Breach inspired story with the glam rock animatronics and Pizzaplex. But this movie, more or less, threw that completely out the window.
Yeah, they're doing a FNAF 3 movie.
But so is Michael Afton, and in fact we're going to make a joke about their names being the exact same. Oh, you thought that the FNAF 3 game might be a bit too weird and small scale to adapt to film? Too bad! That's basically exactly what they're setting up for the next movie. Deal with it! And
thinking about it, like, what they do with the FNAF 3 location is, like, the horror attraction gets built. They already have Springtrap before whoever the person behind the desk in the game is there. So maybe what happens is, mysterious murders, the horror attraction opens up and he's like, oh, big success and stuff like that. And, all of a sudden these murders start happening around town. Like, it happens at night whenever the place is closed. And it's because, Springtrap has been leaving in the middle of the night or whatever to kill people, and then he returns in the day to, pretend that he's, a rotten animatronic for the horror attraction or whatever, I don't know.
Then they're adding in more ideas on top of that, like the puppet being able to possess humans. Scott is going big with these films, and I just gotta respect that, man. But while that didn't turn out how I expected, other things did. Particularly what I said in our last theory before this movie came out about how these movies are really about Scott reclaiming his story and retelling it in the way that he wants to. You probably all know at this point that early FNAF games weren't really planned out. Scott was flying by the seat of his pants, riding off of some unexpected success, and some odd choices were made because of that. Timelines got funky because some characters had to exist and to be active and do conflicting things decades apart. That sort of thing. But now that Scott is getting more or less a second pass on this story here, all of a sudden that confusion can be put to rest. And a good example of that, the fact that FNAF 3 is going to be adapted, but in the same time frame as these first two stories. If you don't remember, the FNAF 3 video game took place like 30 years after the closure of the original Fazbear location, and
wait, 30 years? Oh yeah, because the whole theory was that that the first game took place in like 1998 or something. Right. So 30. Okay.
A sort of theme park horror attraction based off of the folklore of the murders. It was about the nostalgia that Freddy's built up in that universe, similar to Chuck E. Cheese here in ours. And though it doesn't seem connected, this is also why I believe that they focused so heavily on Fast Fest here in the FNAF 2 movie when it didn't really go anywhere. Like, that was weird, right? They mentioned this big festival event dedicated to Freddy's, and we do see it very briefly, but it's not really a central focus of the movie. It's basically in like 2 scenes. Like, it almost felt tacked on, right? I
mean, that being said, from what I've heard, there are actually like a lot of deleted scenes and cut scenes from this, so I definitely want to see a FNAF 2 director's cut that's like 3 hours long or something like that.
thought that that was an interesting choice. Like, I would have set the climax of the film there if I were writing this instead of the Schmidt's house. But looking back, that wasn't the purpose of this in this story. It was setting up that there was this nostalgic tinted love for the Freddy's IP so that the Fazbear's Fright attraction could make sense for the FNAF 3 movie in the same part of the timeline with Mike and Abby and Vanessa. Now, there doesn't need to be a time jump, which makes the game timeline so difficult to parse. And that wasn't the only thing being used here to set up future stories. Like, all of those lucid dreams with Mike and Vanessa in these first two movies, that's absolutely setting up FNAF 4 and all of its weirdness and dreams,
theory.
showing us that not only are dreams significant for characters in these films, but that you can interact with ghosts inside of them.
And the ghosts can interact with you as well. So yeah, I mean, the nightmare animatronics. Okay.
Similar thing by introducing Michael Afton here, setting him up for a story arc that could include the stories of the games FNAF 4 through 7, especially if Josh Hutcherson decides that he wants to hang up the security guard jacket after the third film. Which actually brings me to my next point here, the big one. So, if the movies are pretty much adapting the games one-to-one as they appear to be doing now, that means that we can split up how they're going to be doing these stories into, like, 3 eras, or rather, kind of 3 places where they could end if they so choose to and they stop making money. There's the original trilogy, FNAF 1 through 3, which I'll call the Mike trilogy for the films. Then there's FNAF 4 through 7, which I'll call the Michael arc, and then everything after that, with Help Wanted and Security Breach and all that jazz. We'll call that the Mimic series. That is going to be the future of these movies, with Mike and Afton's story concluding with FNAF 3, Michael becoming the central figure in the next series, and then, well, who knows what they'll do with the Mimic stuff. That's gonna be so weird. Ironically, though, by expanding these movies out again and doing one film for each game like they appear to be doing, that creates an entirely new problem because of earlier decisions. See, I wonder if Vanessa being in these early movies happened because Scott and Blumhouse weren't sure how many of these they were going to get. I stand by our theory that early on, they wanted to have as much recognizable FNAF stuff in one movie as possible to really get butts in seats. But now, how the hell are they going to do Security Breach if Vanessa is here in these stories?
Okay. Wait a second. Okay, I have a really silly idea here. But what if they ever actually do get to the point of, like, you know, Help Wanted and, like, making... If they ever do get to the point of, like, getting to Help Wanted or, you know, Security Breach and stuff like that, what if the security guard in that movie is called Elizabeth? And the whole thing with, like, the alternate personality being called Vanny is, like, the digital Springtrap trying to recreate his daughter, Vanessa. I mean, it'd be really weird, but I mean, it'd be kind of simple to fix like that.
Like, sure, they have set up a sort of Vanny-Vanessa relationship between the movie Vanessa and Charlotte, but I just can't see that lasting past the next movie or the conclusion of Charlotte's story. They might just have to introduce a new character in the Security Breach movies that fulfills the same purpose, and if they really want to mess with us, they'll even name her Elizabeth.
Yeah, exactly!
They have to do something with Garrett in the future, right? Like, it just felt like they just dropped him completely for this movie, but he has to show up again, right? Like, hey, maybe if Golden Freddy is gone and no longer the vengeful spirit, maybe Charlotte can take on that role and Garrett can kind of be the protector of souls that Charlie was in the games. Or, man, maybe at this point I'm just grasping for silly straws. But
who knows?
That's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Oh, God, honestly. I mean, again, like, I loved the FNAF 2 movie so much. I honestly did. I definitely want to see where they could go in the future. Like, what could be done? What are they going to do for FNAF 3? Because there were, like, so many, like, especially the baby thing. What is going to happen with baby in FNAF 3? Are we going to get anything from there? Ugh. God, they could do so many things in the future with this, and I have no idea. But yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.